African Union has called for a sanction regime against member states that would fail to make their annual financial contributions. UN Security Council lifts sanctions against Eritrea. China is awakening the government of the Gambia on agreements signed between the two countries and those of the Beijing summit, as the new ambassador to the country meets the president. Good evening, our viewers in the African continent and beyond. You're watching The World Today, and I am Fatma Tajaju. We start with our lead story. African Union has called for a sanction regime against member states that would fail to make their annual financial contributions to the cash-strapped continental body. This proposal was made by African Union Commission Chair Musa Faki Mahamat at the 20th Extraordinary Meeting of African Foreign Ministers at the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa. In relation to the financial independence, the reform agenda calls on the nations to abide by their financial commitments and suggests all member states reserve 0.2% of their import duties to the Pan-African bodies as the organization struggles to achieve financial independence. Their meeting deliberated on the continental reform agenda ahead of an extraordinary summit of the African heads of state of the government to be convened in the weekend. On Saturday, the leaders will decide what kind of sanctions will be imposed on member states who will fail to make their annual financial contributions and other reform issues. However, it is little known which countries are failing to stick to their financial commitments. Barely 2 months after Chinese president announced a $60 billion fund for the African continent, the world's largest economic state newly appointed ambassador to the West African nation of the Gambia, His Excellency Eme Joang Chung, meets the country's president, Mr. Adama Barrow, to present his credentials. Mr. Joang Chung told reporters that his meeting was a reminder on his president Xi Jinping's development blueprint with African leaders. Fatoumata Jaite has more on that.
China is awakening the government of the Gambia on agreements signed between the two countries and those of the Beijing summit. In 2016, China and the Gambia resumed diplomatic relations after Gambia cut ties with Taiwan. The two countries pledged to develop friendship at all levels, including agricultural, industrial, and infrastructural sectors. In presenting his credentials to Gambia's President Adama Barrow, the Chinese ambassador to the Gambia, Ma Jianxun, said his meeting was a reminder on Xi Jinping's development blueprint with African leaders. This project, he said, is building up that Africans are satisfied with the cooperation. In trying to implement agreements from the Beijing summit, we are trying to make quick developments again, he said.
Chinese government, Chinese president, and the African leaders draw the new blueprint for the next development together. So you can see the project already built up, and you can see the African people very satisfied to our cooperation. So we are going to seize this opportunity of implementing these outcomes of the FOCOC Beijing summit. We will try to make the great development again.
During the Beijing summit in September, the Chinese President Xi Jinping pledged $60 billion in financing for projects in Africa. He said Chinese investments and engagement on the continent would continue with no political strings tied to Beijing's investments.
Gambia is expecting to overcome the drowned cases by 2019 as more kids are trained on how to swim and save lives. The recent is the just concluded second edition of the Swim for Life Gambia project, where 30 kids benefited from a month-long intensive training course. iAfrica Sports reporter Saji Sambo witnessed the colorful event held in Koto and filed in this report.
Trained swimmers ranging from the ages of 4 to 17 over the weekend graduated from the second edition of swimming course initiated by Swim for Life Gambia, a non-governmental organization in the Gambia. The 30-day course was meant to equip swimmers with basic life-saving techniques for people exploring the sea for sports and other reasons. Speaking at the closing ceremony, the National Sports Council Chairman Borit Dabo said embrace the initiative as a risk of migration idea for swimmers in the country.
Where young children of ages 4 upwards could be brought in at one venue and trained to be swimmers and to save life, not only Gambians, but residents of the Gambia who uses our waters day in, day out. So this being a second edition is very, very important for the ministry and the Gambia as a nation.
For his part, the project coordinator Sang Mendes said the reason for initiating such a project is the frequent cases of drowning being reported around the country.
As we bring to an end a project designed to train children aged 6 to 18 to learn how to swim, let me remind you that annually, close to 100 people drown in sea or in pools across the country. Out of these drowned cases, lives are lost. Most of the lives lost are of the children between the age bracket we are graduating here today.
He called on for help to be able to sustain the project as they are planning for a nationwide swimming training tour.
I urge the government of the Gambia, through the Ministry of Youth and Sports, to think of how to embrace such a project. I will also call on the National Olympic Committee to think of how to support such an initiative, because this is what we call real catch them young. How can I end without calling on the Ministry of Tourism and Interior? I'm calling on these two ministries because swimming as a leisure is done around the tourism development area.
Meanwhile, Swim for Gambia is planning to offer safety training for more youth, including fishermen throughout the country. For Africa TV Sports, I am Saji Sambo.
South Africa and the European Union have wrapped up the 7th summit with a 23 points communique. They commemorated the legacy of Nelson Mandela on today in Brussels. The summit, which was attended by Donald Tusk, President of the European Council, Jean-Claude Juncker, President of the European Commission, and the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, on the area of multilateral cooperation. The two parties recommit themselves to jointly promote development, security, and human rights. The two parties also welcomed Iran's continued commitment to the full and effective implementation of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action as confirmed by the IAEA reports, and in line with its obligations under the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. They stressed on the importance of effective implementation of the JCPOA, which includes sanctions lifting in the interest of regional and international peace and security. Since South Africa's fourth democratic elections in 1994, the EU has supported comprehensive development assistance programs with a total contribution to South Africa amounting to $3 billion. Speaking during a post-summit press conference, Donald Tusk described South Africa as a strategic partner and that the EU is ready to keep the ties with the country stronger.
These include support for multilateral solutions, including trading system and the rules-based global order, which will be discussed in 2 weeks' time at the G20 in Argentina. Next year, South Africa will be on the United Nations Security Council, providing another opportunity to enhance our cooperation on peace and security further. Also, when it comes to migration, like Europe, South Africa is a destination country for migrants and refugees. So, it is important for both of us that sending countries take back irregular economic migrants when requested. Last but not least, we discussed Brexit. South Africa, like all our international partners, is concerned by Brexit. We updated President Ramaphosa on the state of play of negotiations and assured him that the EU will do its utmost to keep partner countries informed and to reduce the negative impact of the Brexit process.
Both South Africa and the EU expressed commitment to enhance bilateral investments by improving skills for employability and conducive business environment, which aim to ensure accountability and competitive practices. Other aspects of the agreement between the two partners include agriculture, regional cooperation, defense, and related matters. UN Security Council has yesterday unanimously voted to lift international sanctions on Eritrea and East African nation following a historic peace accord with neighboring Ethiopia. The Eritrean government has always denied supporting Al-Shabaab militants, calling the claim a fabrication created by Western powers. For more, we go on with this report.
The UN Security Council has unanimously voted to lift international sanctions on Eritrea, following a historic peace accord with Ethiopia. The Council imposed sanctions, froze assets and travel ban on senior officials, as well as an arms embargo for the country's alleged support for Al-Shabaab militants in Somalia. From 1998 to 2000, the two countries fought a war in which 70,000 people perished. Eritrea was also alleged to have refused to settle a border dispute with Djibouti. The Council's decision to lift the penalties was prompted by a revival in regional ties in the Horn of Africa, highlighted by Ethiopia and Eritrea signing of a peace agreement that fully restored ties between the neighbors. Addressing the Council after the vote, the United Kingdom's Ambassador Karen Pierce said the agreement to lift sanctions on Eritrea recognized the improvements in regional peace and security.
The agreement to lift sanctions on Eritrea recognizes the improvements in regional peace and security and the positive steps Eritrea has taken to meet the demands of the Security Council. And it is right that in the light of such developments, we reconsider the measures. It is also right that we continue to urge dialogue between Eritrea and Djibouti on the Djiboutian combatants missing in action and on the resolution of their border dispute.
More than 10,000 people participated in an Eritrea-Ethiopia peace run in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa on Sunday. Eritrea's representative Emmanuel Gorgio said that Eritreans will not look backwards and that it is mindful of the historic lessons of the past 2 decades.
Eritreans will not look backwards and are not resentful. While mindful of the historical lessons of the past 2 decades, they are determined to create a peaceful and prosperous nation that is worthy of the sacrifice made for over 7 decades to build a harmonious, peaceful, and confident country.
Ethiopia's ambassador, Tasalesim Amande, told the Council that the resolution was being adopted at a time when a major historic development is unfolding in the Horn of Africa.
We are adopting this resolution today at a time when a major and historical development is unfolding in the Horn of Africa. The breakthrough arising from the rapprochement between Ethiopia and Eritrea is already producing unprecedented and far-reaching positive consequences and is significantly changing the political landscape of the Horn of Africa and beyond.
The Eritrean government has always denied supporting Al-Shabaab militants, calling the claim a fabrication created by U.S. intelligence officials. Ethiopia is a close ally of the U.S., especially in the fight against Al-Shabaab in Somalia.
Serekunda East will in the weekend face the West Coast Giants of Brikama in the ongoing zonal finals as they narrowly edged out arch rivals Banjul by a lone goal in the past weekend at the Independence Stadium. Sajo Sambu was at the match for us and filed in this report.
Serekunda East will on Sunday face the West Coast Giants Brikama in the zonal finals as they narrowly edge out arch rivals Banjul by a lone goal.
And there is a goal! It's a goal!
The East success came from Alaji Kujabi's close range tap 3 minutes to the end of the first half. The side proved too strong for Banjul in the group stages and remitted them out of the championship to stretch the trophy drought of the City Boys to 18 years. Serekunda East last laid their hands on the trophy in 2014. In the other hand, the victory of the Sateba boys over defending champions Sukuta is a great sign of their readiness to take the trophy all the way to Brikama this year. The Sunday encounter at the Independence Stadium will decide as to who goes home with a whopping 200,000 with a giant trophy. The runner-up will receive $100,000 and either Manja or Banjul will take home a $50,000 as prize for the third place.
Well, viewers, that's all we have for you on the World Today Evening Bulletin. For more on these and other stories, log on to our website, iafrica.tv. I am Fatma Tajajo once again, and do have a nice evening. Fear over electoral rigging rocks Zimbabwe as the country.
Yesterday, after listening to Prime Minister May's assessment of the state of the negotiations,